The roar of the plane's engines drowned out Titi Adeola's scream of horror. Her wide eyes locked onto those of her husband, Dapo, who held the phone with trembling hands. "Beside!" Titi exclaimed, her voice barely audible over the takeoff noise. "We forgot Beside!" Dapo, normally serene, felt panic take over. He had just ended a call with the driver who was supposed to take their doze-year-old daughter to her grandparents' house. The confused man had informed him that no one had left the mansion that morning. "Sir, please sit down and fasten your seatbelt," ordered a flight attendant hurrying down the aisle. Dapo collapsed into his seat, his mind a whirlwind of frantic thoughts. How could they have made such a mistake? The morning had been chaotic with last-minute rushes to get to the airport and close an important deal in São Paulo. Amid the confusion, they had assumed the other had taken care of Beside. "We need to go back," Titi whispered, clutching her husband's arm so tightly that her knuckles turned white. But it was too late. The plane had already taken off, heading inexorably toward the blue skies of Ibadan. Beside, their only daughter, was alone in the vast Adeola mansion. Dapo and Titi's panic was palpable, reflecting the fear that many parents feel when leaving their children alone. How many stories like this go untold? If you have lived or know of similar situations, share them. Your experience could be invaluable to others. Meanwhile, in a slum on the other side of the city, Kunle was finishing cleaning the barrel of his gun. Beside him, Said was counting the meager loot from their last robbery for the third time. "This isn't enough," Said growled, running a hand through her braided hair. "We need a big hit, Kunle, something that will get us out of this hole once and for all." Kunle nodded, his eyes shining with a mix of desperation and determination. "I have an idea," he said, leaning forward. "Do you remember the Adeola mansion? Those rich folks who are always on the news?" Said frowned. "The ones in the tech business? Yeah, what about them?" "My cousin works at the airport," Kunle continued, lowering his voice even though they were alone in the shabby room. "He told me the Adeola family left for a trip today. The whole family." Said's eyes widened as she instantly understood. "An empty house?" "Exactly," Kunle smiled, putting away his gun. "And full of valuable stuff. This is our chance, Said. Tonight we're going to get rich." What Kunle and Sade didn't know was that the mansion wasn't as empty as they thought. At that very moment, Beside Adeola was waking up with a start, realizing that the silence in the house was too deep, too absolute. The girl got out of bed, her heart pounding. "Mom!" she called, her voice echoing in the empty hallway. "Dad?" But there was no response, only the echo of her own voice bouncing off the mansion's marble walls. Beside felt a chill run down her spine. She was alone, completely alone in a house that was too big and too silent. And outside, on the streets of Ibadan, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky a blood-red hue that seemed to foretell the dangers the night would bring. Beside stood motionless in the hallway, her mind trying to process the situation. The silence of the house was oppressive, broken only by the ticking of the old grandfather clock in the foyer. Slowly, the reality of her situation began to sink in. She was alone. With cautious steps, the girl walked through the house, calling for her parents, hoping it was all a misunderstanding. But each empty room confirmed her fear. In the kitchen, she found a hastily scribbled note from her mother. "Beside, the grandparents will come to pick you up at Des. We love you." Beside looked at the kitchen clock. It was 6 p.m. Her grandparents never arrived. Panic threatened to take over her, but then she remembered her grandmother's words. "Fear is like darkness, Beside. It seems big and scary, but when you turn on a light, you find it's not as bad as you thought." Taking a deep breath, Beside decided she would be her own light. She began to think about what to do. The landline phone wasn't working, probably due to the storm the previous night. Her cell phone was being repaired. She was truly isolated. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Kunle and Sade were getting ready for their big hit. "Are you sure no one is in the house?" Said asked as she loaded a backpack with tools. Kunle nodded, checking his gun. "Completely. My cousin saw them get on the plane. The house will be empty until tomorrow." As the sun set, Besaid began to feel a growing fear. The shadows in the house seemed to stretch, creating threatening shapes on the walls. But instead of freezing, the girl decided to act. First, she secured all the doors and windows on the ground floor. Then she gathered supplies, flashlights, batteries, some food, and water. Her mind was working at full speed, recalling all the action movies she had watched with her father. If someone tries to get in, she thought, I need to be prepared. With a determination that would surprise her own parents, Besaid began setting up simple but effective traps. She placed water buckets above doors, scattered marbles in strategic spots, and spread soap on the basement stairs. At 9 p.m., a noise at the back of the house made Besaid's heart stop. From her hideout in the attic, she saw two figures moving in the darkness of the garden. Kunle and Said were approaching the mansion, confident in their plan. This will be a piece of cake, Kunle whispered as he tampered with the back door lock. What they didn't know was that a doze-year-old girl, armed only with her wits and courage, was about to turn their perfect hit into a night they would never forget. Besaid, with her heart pounding but with unbreakable resolve, prepared to defend her home. She knew the next few minutes would be crucial. She had no idea how she was going to do it, but she was determined not to give up without a fight. As the intruders forced their way in, Besaid activated her first trap. A metallic crash echoed in the kitchen as Kunle tripped over an invisible wire, sending a cascade of pots and pans to the floor. "Damn it!" Kunle hissed, startled by the noise. "What the hell was that?" Said, tense, scanned the darkness. "Maybe they left the dog. Be careful." But there was no dog. Just a smart and scared girl moving silently through the secret passages of the house she knew like the back of her hand. Upstairs, Dapo and Titi Adeola were living their own nightmare thousands of kilometers away. The plane had just landed in São Paulo, and the couple was frantic. "We need to go back," insisted Titi, her eyes red from held-back tears. "Our daughter is alone, Dapo. Alone." Dapo, equally distressed, tried to stay calm. "I'm looking for the first flight back, but even if we get it, it will take hours to get there." The helplessness consumed them. Their daughter, their little Besaid, was facing who knows what dangers, and they were trapped on the other side of the ocean. Back at the mansion, Kunle and Saad were cautiously moving through the dining room. Suddenly, Saad slipped, crashing onto the luxurious mahogany table. "Damn it!" she shouted, rubbing her back. "The floor! It's slippery!" Kunle helped his partner up, his initial confidence giving way to unease. "Something's not right here, Said. It's like—" He couldn't finish the sentence. A dull noise from upstairs startled them both. Besaid, hidden in the shadows, held her breath. She had deliberately dropped a heavy book, hoping to lure the intruders toward another one of her traps. The night was just beginning, and the battle of wits between a brave girl and two desperate thieves was about to intensify. Kunle and Sade exchanged glances, the tension palpable between them. The noise upstairs had put them on high alert. "Let's split up," Kunle whispered. "You take the main staircase, I'll go up the service stairs." Sade nodded, her hand gripping the gun at her waist tightly. "Be careful," she murmured before disappearing into the dimly lit hallway. Besaid, hidden in a second-floor closet, heard the cautious footsteps approaching. Her heart was beating so loudly she feared it would give her away. With trembling hands, she clutched her father's drone remote, an idea forming in her mind. Meanwhile, at the São Paulo airport, Dapo and Titi Adeola were frantically running toward the boarding gate. "Wait!" Dapo shouted as he saw the staff starting to close the door. "Please, it's an emergency!" The airline agent looked at them sympathetically. "I'm sorry, sir, but the plane—" "Our daughter," Titi interrupted, tears streaming down her cheeks. "She's alone at home. Please, we need to go back." Something in their desperate voices moved the agent. With a sigh, he signaled to his colleagues, "Hurry up, we'll let you board." Back at the mansion, Said reached the second floor, her eyes scanning every shadow. Suddenly, a buzzing filled the air. From the darkness, a flying object swooped down on her. "What the hell?" she screamed, frantically waving her arms as Besaid's drone hovered around her, its LED lights flashing intensely. Taking advantage of the confusion, Besaid slipped out of her hiding spot and ran to her parents' room, where she knew there was an emergency phone. Kunle, alerted by Sade's screams, rushed up the stairs 2 at a time. "What's going on? What?" He stopped short at the sight of his partner struggling with the drone. In that moment of distraction, neither of them noticed the small figure slipping down the hallway. Besaid reached her parents' room, her breathing heavy. With trembling fingers, she dialed the emergency number on the satellite phone. "Ibadan Police, what's your emergency?" responded a voice on the other end of the line. "Please," Besaid whispered, her voice breaking with fear and relief. "There are intruders in my house. I'm alone. Please help me." The operator, grasping the gravity of the situation, responded calmly. "Stay calm, little one. We're sending a patrol right now. Can you tell me exactly where you are?" As Besaid gave the details, Kunle and Sade finally freed themselves from the drone, now lying broken on the floor. "This doesn't make sense," Kunle growled. "The house was supposed to be empty." Sade, pale-faced, pointed down the hallway. "Kunle, look." There, projected on the wall, was the unmistakable shadow of a small figure. A child's figure. "Damn it," Kunle whispered. "There's a kid here." Panic gripped both of them. Robbing an empty house was one thing, but this was something completely different. "We need to go," Sade said, her voice trembling. "Now." But before they could move, the sound of sirens filled the air. Red and blue lights illuminated the mansion's windows. Besaid, still on the phone, felt tears of relief streaming down her cheeks. "They're here," she whispered. "The police are here." In a matter of minutes, the Adeola mansion was filled with police officers. Kunle and Sade were arrested without resistance, too shocked by how their perfect hit had unraveled. Besaid, wrapped in a blanket and surrounded by concerned officers, finally allowed herself to relax. She had survived. She had protected her home. Hours later, as dawn began to paint the Ibadan sky, a taxi pulled up in front of the mansion. Dapo and Titi Adeola rushed out, their faces marked by exhaustion and worry. "Besad!" they shouted in unison upon seeing their daughter sitting on the front steps, guarded by a kind police officer. The girl looked up, and for a moment, all the fear and bravery of the previous night reflected in her eyes. Then, with a sob of relief, she ran into her parents' open arms. "I'm so sorry, my love," Titi whispered, holding her daughter tightly. "We'll never leave you alone again." Dapo, tears in his eyes, joined the embrace. "We're so proud of you, Besaid. You were so brave." As the family reunited, the police officer approached with a smile on his face. "You have an extraordinary daughter," he said. "Her wit and courage saved this house and caught a pair of wanted thieves. She's a real hero." Besaid, still in her parents' arms, felt a surge of pride. She had faced her fears, had been brave in the darkness. And now, with the rising sun bathing the city of Ibadan, she knew she could face anything life threw at her. The experience of that night would change the Adeola family forever. Dapo and Titi learned a valuable lesson about priorities and the importance of family above all else. Besaid discovered an inner strength she didn't even know she possessed. In the days and weeks that followed, the story of the brave girl who defended her home spread throughout the city. Besaid became a symbol of courage for other children, showing that even in the darkest moments, the light of bravery can shine brightly. And so, what began as a night of terror transformed into a story of triumph, a lesson about the power of determination and ingenuity in the face of adversity. The courage of Besaid reminds us that we all have an inner hero waiting to awaken. What has been your moment of unexpected bravery? Share your story in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more tales that challenge the limits of human determination. Your next source of inspiration could be just a click away.